Hey, this is Troy Taylor with the Championship Football Coaches Clinic podcast, sponsored by Rack Coach. We got Chris Roberts, the linebacker coach from Mechanicsville High School, here today with us. Chris, how are you doing today? And would you like to introduce yourself to the clinic?
Sure, Coach. My name's Chris Roberts. I'm a linebackers coach at Mechanicsville High School. I am a 16-year coach veteran. I've been kind of around a little bit. I started my career when I was young, 20 years old, down in Randolph Henry in the South Side.
What year was
I
that?
2005, I
Wow.
think.
Did you coach at Randolph Henry in 2007?
Yep,
Y'all beat us at Amelia
yep.
at our
Um,
homecoming. I
oh
was
yeah.
I was the head coach.
Really?
I
I
was
didn't
the
even know
young
that.
I was the young hot shot.
Oh,
I thought I was real good. I think we had won 4, and it was our
Did Bradley
homecoming.
take over after you?
It was yeah, eventually, yeah. It was
Yeah, okay.
after me, it was a coach named Coach Carson who was on the previous staff with Phil Gross. And
Okay.
then after Carson, it was Mark Johnson. Mark Johnson
Okay.
was coach of the year. He got let go. Then they brought in Brad Bradley. Then there's
Okay.
been about 3 other coaches, then Coach Johnson, then Coach Johnson got let go again. So yeah, I
Yeah,
learned a lesson that day, man.
I was there from '05 until 13.
Wow. So
Um,
I learned a lesson. You had a great quarterback and a coach's son.
that was
Who
probably yeah, it was Freeland was the linebacker, tight end, slot receiver guy, and then quarterback was who, Daly or
I
Brogdon
can't
maybe?
remember. I remember what he looks like.
Yeah.
He looked like Michael Vick.
Yeah.
He was running all
All over
around and
the place. Yep. Yeah, so I was there from '05 to 13, and then I went out to the beach to ODU to get my teaching license and got a job at Denby High School. I was there from 13 until 21. Well, I stopped coaching football for 2 years to be a head wrestling coach out at the beach. Um, I was like 13 to like 18 maybe ish. I was at Denby High School, and then I was a head wrestling coach at Warwick High School for a couple years, and then I met a wonderful lady out here in Richmond, and now I'm in Richmond. I was at King William for the year we won the state championship with Coach Moore, and then this past season I was with Coach Reynolds at Mechanicsville.
yeah,
So
so
yeah,
you've been an assistant for 16 years and eventually you're looking, to make that step to being a head coach, and I hope this will help you in that process. Chris Roberts is one of the young up and coming stars in the profession in the Richmond area, and I'm
thanks
using
for
a
that,
new
Coach.
camera. I'm using a new camera. It's a $500 camera and it won't focus. So any of
Oh
y'all that want to
no.
start a podcast, just use a phone and just get a basic old $50 webcam.
Mine's $60 a Logitech. Yep, that's
Yeah.
exactly the same one I'm using.
Yeah.
It's
Don't
great.
don't get a Canon fancy thing because you'll be sitting here and it'll be blurry and it looks exactly the same. So that I can't even believe I have a podcast, coach. I don't even know how to run a computer. I don't even know how I got here. But I got Jim McNally's phone number and we became best friends.
That's
6
cool.
days.
That's
So,
awesome.
coach, yeah, and you're here today because of relationships,
Absolutely.
because of your father-in-law who met me last year when you came to the clinic. And he introduced himself, and then all you got to say is Graham High School to me. And
Yep.
I knew some of the players that played for your father-in-law, and then Reedsville and state championships. And your brother-in-law is the director of football relations for the Tar Heels, and
Yeah. So I
yeah.
tease
So,
my
I
wife
mean,
all the time that I married into the family for them, not for her, and she gets a chuckle out of that. But yeah, I probably have learned more in the last 2 years since dating Sarah and knowing Doug and Al, and just just learning from them and like especially because just Doug was there the whole way when I was at King William and the defensive coordinator at King William was Maurice Newbill, and his daughter got sick during that year, and he was kind of in and out of the program the whole year. And he was like, "Hey, Chris, like I need you to help me. Like I'd be there, like run the defense for me when I'm not there." And I was calling Doug probably once a week, twice a week. Hey, what do you have any advice? Do you have any? And he actually pointed out something that Graham was one of the linemen from Graham was doing in the
Oh, wait,
state
hold on,
championship
hold on.
game.
Yeah, you might not want to mention that Doug helped against
I
Graham,
know, I know, I
but
know.
yeah, never. Y'all might not be allowed
And
to go
he,
back.
yeah, I know. Yeah,
Hey,
he
family,
helped me
man,
so much.
family.
Yeah, I know. He helped me so much, and I'm so grateful for them. Um, Al's been super awesome as far as becoming his brother, and I just I'm so thankful for them. They've been great.
Yeah. So your brother-in-law, he helped get Chip Lindsey on, and then Gene Chiswick. And your brother-in-law told me, Coach Chiswick said that he might be able to do 15 minutes.
Right.
Gene Chiswick, I'm a fan for life of him. He did an hour and 15 minutes,
That's what
and his
Al
dad
said.
was a
Yeah.
high school coach. Amazing.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, just how humble he is. And
Yeah.
it seems like the older these coaches get, the more they're willing to give back.
Yeah.
So that's it's kind of awesome that you're not on the old side of things like me, but you figured it out,
I still consider you young, coach. You look like a young chap.
dude. I don't. I got hair, and my hair looks a lot more brown on YouTube.
um, yeah, I'm actually gonna head down to the UNC Coaches Clinic on the 23rd and 24th, I think is when it is, that Friday and Saturday. Um, so I'm hoping to meet Coach Chiswick and Coach Lindsay, and I've never actually spoken to them. I've been in the offices a couple times for games and stuff, but never had the opportunity to talk to them, talk football and stuff like that. So I'm hoping I can get down there and talk to them about that stuff.
Yeah, man. So I'm gonna share your stream, Coach.
Okay, awesome,
So you can get going. So I got the building relationships that last slide up there, and you
cool,
got it, Coach.
absolutely. Um, so I really want to talk today about building relationships and how they're going to help your program because to me, I've I've really prided myself on building relationships with my kids, my students, my football players, even all my athletes. Whenever I was coaching, I've coached everything: football, wrestling, soccer, um, and I just feel like they tend to buy more. They buy in a little more. They tend to come to you more when you have a good relationship with them. Do I switch the screen?
Yes, sir.
I can. Okay. Let me pull this up on a second monitor here. So there you see my kind of football history. I was with Randolph Henry, Denby, Menchville for a year, and then King William last season, and then Mechanicsville. I didn't put Mechanicsville on there, but Mechanicsville this past season. Wrestling coach for a couple years. Longtime assistant at Menchville. I was there for 5 years. We had a couple of state placers, state runner up. But yeah, I've been around.
Yeah, man. And the thing I like about your career is that you've been rural. I mean, dude, I didn't even know where Charlotte Courthouse was.
Oh man, it's
It's the
so
middle of
small.
nowhere,
Yeah.
and
And Doug and Sarah love to tell you, "Oh, we're small and Graham and Blue." I'm like, "It's Bluefield. It's like almost the size of Farmville. Like
oh yeah, it's two
it's
colleges
huge."
there.
Yeah.
There ain't
So
nothing in Charlotte Courthouse
no, ain't nothing there. Like
other than
we
good
didn't even
baseball coaches.
right. We don't even have a stoplight, a traffic light until 2016. Like it was crazy. But yeah. So hold on, make sure I'm over
But
here.
you've been rural and you've been in urban schools and
Right.
suburban, so
Right.
that kind of makes you, a commodity.
Right. I know both sides of the thing. So I mean, the why I coach, why I love football is this camaraderie with the kids, with the other coaches, just getting together and being on the same page about something. Competition, I I like to be competitive at just about anything. Like we were at a professional development at Highland Springs this past week, and I was trying to beat other teams at trash get ball. Like I'll be doesn't even matter what it is. And then relationships, like just meeting people. I've always been a people person. I worked retail when I was in college, like at Bass Pro Shops. I love that aspect, just meeting people and finding out their story and trying to figure out why they wanted. to buy what they were buying. Like what were they looking for, hunting gear or fishing gear? Like what were so I just love relationships. And then love the game. I've always loved football. I actually moved to the United States when I was 12 years old. I grew up playing hockey. I grew up in Canada. I didn't even know what football was really. We had the Grey Cup every year in Canada. That's about all I knew about football. But I moved to the States when I was 12. I watched University of Miami in Virginia Tech back when they were really good. Um, and I just fell in love with football, and then I started 8th grade, 8th, 9th, 10th, all the way through high school. Um, went to walk on at Coastal Carolina with Coach Bennett when he first started the program down there. 2 days into practice, I was like, I don't know if I want to do this or not. So I hung my cleats up for playing days and um, partied my butt off at Coastal Carolina, and then ended up moving home. Joe Freeland asked me to coach as soon as I moved home. He asked me to coach Randolph Henry, and then I've been coaching ever since. So yeah, I love doing it just for the love of the game and those things, like guys. And if you're doing this for the money, like let us all know so that we can all get rich because apparently there's a school somewhere that's paying you ungodly amounts of money. I don't even, I don't know. I don't know. I can't contemplate Texas and South Carolina and Georgia, like those places that are just paying like 60, 80, like $100,000 for a football coach. It's like that's never entered my brain as far as how's that happens. Anyway,
Yeah, winning
yeah,
and ticket sales.
I know, right?
And if you don't win, you're gone. And that's
Yeah,
all I can think, Coach.
yeah, I know. It's high stakes like college and NFL almost. It's
Yeah.
crazy. So yeah, I want to talk about relationships today and basically how to be more intentional with them, how to be how to have a purpose with relationships rather than just be like just randomly do whatever. So first step is be intentional, right? I put this quote by Bobby Knight, um, just because this is why you develop relationships with your kids is that because you need them to you want them to be part of you and you to be part of them, like that you want them to think about you when they're doing something, when they're making a decision in life, like hey, I really want to go with my friends to this party and possibly do some dumb stuff. But what would coach think about this? Like, how would this help my program, or how would this hurt my program? You really want them to think about those types of things when you're doing this. In the definition of intentional is done on purpose or deliberate. So you're doing it with a purpose rather than just randomly for no reason. um, So when you build relationships, intentional relationships with your athletes, your football players, or whatever you're coaching, um, there's a higher chance that they're going to want to do better on the field, perform better off the field, and behave better off the field. So, like I said, like how they think about how this would affect your program, and how it affect what you think about this when they do it. Um, I know that when I've gotten through to some kids, we all have those knuckleheads. And when you get through to those kids, they start to like, oh, you start to see it. Like they'll come to your room more. They'll they'll ask you questions about your life. They'll start to like they'll start to put the pieces together and they'll start to like be gravitated towards you rather than the ones that just want to go on to do their own thing where they don't want that relationship with you. But if you're intentional with some of those relationships, then you definitely want to um, increase those relationships and keep building those ones. Because the whole point is buy-in. We want our athletes to buy in. If you can get them develop those relationships and have them buy into you, then they'll buy into the program and they'll want to play harder, want to be on time. They'll want to do a lot of the things that they should be doing. How do we be intentional? The biggest thing I've found, and I'm going to preface all this with I think I seem to do it naturally a lot of times. But some guys I think I've met some coaches along my way that need a little bit of they almost have to try to do it. So I mean, the biggest way I've found is just talk to them. Talk to your athletes about your players about life, about anything. Like just and don't just talk to them and then discard what they're saying. Listen to them. Like actually listen to them. Actively listen to them. Like find out their cousins and they're like find out their whole family dynamic. And it's showing them that you care about them rather than just like I don't know. I can't even fathom what the opposite way is because I've never done that. I've always cared about my athletes.
Mhm.
Um, Make sure you're going to their other sports, their other academic things they're in, like, show up to their basketball games or show up to their wrestling matches or show them that you're there for them rather than you're there and don't just do it and not like, go and be a fan for them, like, that's they love that stuff. Follow through on your word, like, I think a lot of times and I've been guilty of this a couple of times, is that you'll tell your kids you're gonna do something or you're gonna be like you're gonna and then you don't do it, and it's not you don't intentionally not do it, but you kind of forget about it or you I don't know, you just kinda like, and you forget about it. You just it's something small in the back of your head, and you don't follow through on it, and sometimes they'll call you on it. They'll be like, "Hey, coach, we asked you to do this, and you didn't do it." I'm like, "Oh, dang, I'm sorry, guys. I'll make it up to you on for this next week or whatever." So, yeah, so follow through on your word. Big things like that, like, just help to build trust too. Invite them to make small, just program decisions or help with decisions. I think this is a huge one that if ever I get a program, I want to create some sort of inner circle, some sort of like leadership council on the team, and have them involved in some of the bigger decisions, like jersey, buying new uniforms, or I don't know, game day entrance, like stuff that they can have an impact on. Maybe not as far as strategy
Yeah.
and things like that, but that helps them realize that you are interested in what they think. And then lastly, for how to be intentional, like be prepared, have a plan. I have realized in my 16 years of coaching that if you don't come to practice with a practice plan, your kids ain't gonna want to practice that day as much as you don't. Apparently, you didn't either because I didn't want to bring a practice plan. But when you bring a practice plan, you bring something that as um like some sort of idea of what you're doing rather than just winging it. Um, they tend to be a lot more on point and they realize, oh, coach knows what he's doing and he wants to be here and we're gonna go through with it. I put the other side that don't do stuff and say that don't do and say this on the other side. I'll just I mean I think some guys do clock out and go home. I think that they kind of as soon as practice is over, some coaches will just all right, I'm going home, and they don't really they don't get their kids numbers and text them, or they don't put their kids before. I mean, and sometimes some guys have valid excuses, but some guys just they're there for football, and it's like no, we're there to make these young guys better. Like we're not there for just for the X's and O's. And I like follow through on your word, go back on small promises, like promising them that um, you'll buy them all Gatorades or something after practice or something, and then you don't do it. Those if you do a couple of those, they're gonna start to lose a little bit of confidence in you. Um, I've always thought that like if you tell them you're wearing white one day, and then they don't want to wear white, or they grumble when you tell them you're wearing white for game day, or white pants or whatever, then and they're like, "Oh, we don't wanna wear white." And then you're like, "Oh, tough, you're gonna live with it." That wears away at that relationship, that confidence sometimes when they just they want to wear black on black rather than black on white or whatever. Just things like that tend to erode your the confidence they have in you. It's just little things. Okay, the next one is be positive. I don't think this takes a lot of I mean, if we're not positive around our kids, it's gonna be hard to but I put a quote by Bill Walsh. It's basically saying that um, people, especially our athletes, thrive on positive reinforcement. They need to be told they're doing a good job, or they're gonna if you keep being negative around them, they're gonna end up finding um, somewhere else to get that positive reinforcement, whether that be another coach or another off the field somewhere, like a girlfriend. Like so they're gonna look for positive reinforcement somewhere if you keep giving them negative reinforcement. Definition of positive, constructive, optimistic, confident. I think we all know what positivity looks like. I think the biggest reason to stay positive, and I think this is probably the hardest one, I think, for me, especially, is to stay positive, especially when fit hits the shan in a game or in a practice or something. Is it if you can stay positive, your kids will have a better model for what they need to do when they're interacting with anybody. Like my one of my biggest, I mean, being a teacher, one of my biggest things is that the kids just seem to be so negative towards each other, and I don't know what it was COVID that started that or what. Coach, do you have any? I mean,
I
it
mean, COVID changed a lot of things. I mean, it really hurt programs that hang their hat on being year round
yeah,
programs. You know, we hang our hat on being a year round program. We hang our hat on being around our players. We hang our hat on, making an impact and, buy in. And, that really couldn't happen. We
yeah,
couldn't be around our players.
yeah.
People could say they did Zooms and all that stuff, but I mean, it
It's
ain't the
not the
same.
same. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not the same. I mean, the only good thing about this clinic and doing it online rather than in person is it's forever,
Right.
so yeah, I mean,
I mean, you can
we
probably
do.
get more people to Zoom in and talk to you rather than having
Yes,
them fly to Richmond and then
yes,
yeah, so
and
probably
I
the
get to listen to them all, whereas
yeah,
I only listened to one guy last year, Coach
yeah,
Mountjoy, and I've
yeah,
already talked to Coach Mountjoy 5 times. He's coming back on today. Yeah, I'm John
yeah,
Strollo, Coach McNally. None of those guys are coming.
right. I mean, they're not
Um,
gonna fly out to Richmond
no.
for a day
So,
clinic. Yeah.
yeah, we're helping more people. And yeah, I mean, COVID did
Yeah.
change a lot of things, and
Uh,
we're still fighting through that.
yeah, I think it just something clicked in the psyche of young people during COVID, and, it's really hard to get them to be positive with one another. It's just like, "Hey, man, like, why are you calling everybody a B word?" It's like, "Stop." Like, you just need to be nice to each other. Like, we get so much you get so much more. That brings me to my next point. You get so much more honey, or you get more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. Like,
Yeah.
you 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 can get more done out of life being nice to people rather than being negative to people. And then I kinda reinforce Coach Walsh's point with athletes can only take so much negativity, before they start looking other places for positivity. Um, but it's okay. Sometimes it's okay to be hard on them and to be maybe a little negative, but you gotta make sure you come back around and build them back up rather than just stay down on them all the time. Because if you stay down on a kid all the time, he's gonna start to either shell up or he's gonna lash out or do something you don't want, and it's not gonna help your cause or your program. How do we stay positive? I know Coach Price last night at the tech conference or tech clinic talked about it's not the same coaching as it was back in the early 2000s and late 90s and their 80s. It's not the same. It's not do it my way or go home. Like those kids are going to choose. All right, I'm going home. So you got to try and flip it on them and just like try and you got to steer them the way you want. You need to steer them by saying nicer things to them, like how about you try it this way, or hey, I noticed you doing this, but let's try it this way this time, so that they don't think that you're kind of like attacking uh, their person. Because I guess sometimes these kids, like I said, like these kids are a little different after COVID, and especially even before COVID, they started to change that they have other things that they can do that they love. Like they can go play video games, or they can go watch YouTube, or they can go sleep, or they can go. There's so many other things they can do besides play football, and we gotta try and make sure that when they're playing football and they're practicing football, they're having fun rather than getting yelled at nonstop and stuff like that. Now it is I bring my next point, and it is necessary sometimes to get in their butt and chew them out a little bit, but then you gotta once again, you gotta come back around and build them back up and love them up a little bit when they've done something right. Um, I think being positive is letting them know they're getting better when they really are, instead of never telling them they're getting better. Um, and then the last thing as important was is to make sure it's okay to be upset about losing. I think that's a lot of people, a lot of kids, and maybe some coaches I think get really upset about losing and then think it's not good to get upset. Like they want to like suck it up and not let anybody know that like it's okay to be upset about losing. It's just use that feeling. I'm reminded of the shots of who was it? Was it Diggs last year after the Chiefs or the Bengals beat the Bills or Chiefs beat the Bills and Diggs was on the field like just watching them celebrate, and I'm like, that's fuel right there. That's I'm gonna bust my butt all year for the next year to get back to a point where I can be in the state championship game, or I can win the state championship, something like that, rather than bottle it up or just forget about it. It's okay to be upset about losing. So I think teaching them how to be positive about losing and how to take that criticism and stuff like that, but being in a positive way is really good too. And then lastly, be honest. Abraham Lincoln, you can fool some of the people all the time and all the people some of the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time. Um, just being yourself, being the definition, free of deceit and untruthfulness. So it's like you just got to be honest with yourself, and then you can be honest with the athletes. If you know who you are, then you're able to be yourself with your players, and then they can feel when you're not being honest with them. If they feel they detect any type of dishonesty or made up stuff, they're gonna call you on it, or they're gonna at least stop paying attention to you or something like that. And they're gonna receipt check, guys. If they think that you tell them you did something and you really didn't do that, they're gonna find out. They're gonna go check Twitter. They're gonna go social media somewhere, and they're gonna look you up because believe me, that's happened to me before. Some guy, my first year at Denby, some kid was like, "Didn't you play for the Broncos?" And I was like, no, I did not play for the Broncos. I don't know where you heard that, but I did not play for the Broncos." So yeah, so if you're honest with them, and I mean, I could have told them yes, could have like, yeah, I played for the Broncos, and then the next day, they were like, "Man, coach, you're full of it," and I'm like, okay, so I'll just be honest with you and tell you that I didn't. Um, and sometimes kids won't be they won't be honest with you all the way, but they'll be honest with you most of the way, like some of the way. And at least if you gotten down the path of telling the truth and making sure that they like they're telling you that the thing like I talked to you at the beginning, like if they come to me and tell me something that they wouldn't tell a principal or tell their parents or tell the teacher or tell like they're telling me the truth. They're like I had a kid at Randolph Henry. He didn't tell anybody but me. He said, "Hey coach, some girl keyed my car. Like I know who it was but I don't want to. I mean, I don't really want to. I don't know what to do about it." I was like, "All right, well, I'm gonna take you to the resource officer. We're gonna figure it out, and then from there." Now I don't know ever what happened with the story, but he came to me and told me that rather than going to the administrator or going to his teacher, going straight to the resource officer. I like helped him solve that problem, and I think that leads to commitment. So that if he's willing to tell me about that situation, he's been more committed to playing for me and working his butt off because he's like, coach will look out for me. Coach is going to make sure I'm on the right path. Um, I think that I've touched on a lot of these. Like, tell them up front who you are and what you stand for. Like, if you don't do that, then they're going to be guessing the whole time. Like, if you believe that, I don't know, a big thing for Coach Mars is no hats inside. Um, and I'm believe me, I'm getting used to that too. I was a hat inside guy for my entire life. My dad was a hat guy inside for forever, and I'm getting used to that. So every time we're at dinner or we're out, hat comes off. So I know where Coach Moore stands. Like I know what he's about. So if you don't tell your kids like where you stand with your beliefs and all that stuff, then they're gonna be like guessing the whole time. Like, how do I behave around Coach? Um, be humble. Some guys like to brag and shout on the mountain what they did before. It's like, yeah, great. The kids know that already. They've already looked you up 5 times, like I said on Twitter, and figured out that you did play in the NFL or whatever. Okay, like we get it. And I'm not trying to say come off as that as guys that play in the NFL or I'm just as I mean yeah they play in the NFL. I've never played in the NFL, so I I look to them for introspect or for what's the word I'm looking for advice. Like I've never done that, but sometimes the kids get a little bit sick of it. I guess. Like I've heard kids talk on teams like, man, I don't care if he's played in the NFL. Like, okay, So sometimes it's just better to be humble with your kids rather than to keep tooting your own horn. If you make a mistake, own up to it. Like they'll know. Like I don't know how many times I've told them the wrong thing or shown, like, especially I was in wrestling. I'm never the most technical wrestler, but I'd show them the wrong move, and then they'd like, "Coach, that's wrong." I'm like, "Yep, you're right. It's wrong. I told you the wrong thing." That gives them that little bit more buy-in, a little more commitment, a little chip in your relationship pot. And then the last one is, like, give them specific feedback, instructional feedback. Like don't just like give them some general, "Oh, you got to work harder." Well, how do you work harder? Like how do I work hard? Like, okay, so I need you to run 10 more 100-yard sprints. Like that's gonna get you in better shape. Or I need you to do 7 more cone drill. Like something like they need something to build off of rather than just hey, get better, because that doesn't work with our kids. So my 3 B's of intentional relationship is be intentional, be positive, be honest. Like those are the 3 heavy hitters to me that will help any guy who's struggling to like build relationships. This is mainly, I mean, a lot of head coaches have really good relationships, but a lot of assistants, maybe like me, looking for a head job. Maybe that's the next piece you need to get that head job, is to like to develop better relationships with your kids so they buy in a little more. Um, like I said in the beginning, some of us do it without trying, but some of us need to actively try to build relationships. I think that a lot of the, and I'm nearly not a great coach. I just pride myself on relationships. I sometimes, some of these things I do without trying, like I just do them on a daily basis. Some of the things I do need to be more active in doing, like be more attentive in doing. Um, and then when you start to build better relationships with your kids are gonna notice. So they'll be like, "Oh, coach actually coach asked me about me today," or something it's just something like that. And then you're gonna see more buy-in, more commitment. Um, However, every time, like sometimes there's a point where you need to put what's best for the program above your relationship with the athlete or over your athlete, because sometimes relationships can lead, like sometimes that relationship is going to be detrimental to what's best for your program. So I mean, there's some things like you you you, you have a really good relationship with this knucklehead, but this knucklehead called the head coach a B word, or he like cussed out the head coach. It's like, well, I'm not going to sacrifice I'm not going to sacrifice our program and discipline for my relationship for that kid. And I got to let that kid find out that there's consequences to what he did. So I think that the biggest thing for me is relationships equal buy-in. So like if you can develop more relationships, you can get more buy-in from your kids.
Yeah, coach. Well,
That's pretty much it.
yeah, I'm really impressed with your presentation. And this is the part that a lot of young coaches, they're so caught up on how to run this play or that play, but really relationships. Woody Hayes, you win with people.
Yeah.
Coach, who have you been around or coached with that was the best at this?
Hmm. I mean, I've been around a lot of great guys. I mean, I think of my first head coach, Joe Freeland. He was a
Yeah.
head coach at Randolph Henry. He was like a second father to me. I played for him. He was my neighbor for my high school career. Um, is I mean he just he yes, he was not the winningest coach at Randolph Henry, but he always cared about his kid. Like he never um would put winning over like what's the right thing to do, or like what's
Mm.
the what like he's probably my first and best example of relationships. Like he didn't care that we would win 6, 8, 10. He was like, I think we went 5-5 one year I was with him. That was probably the most we ever went. But I think every one of his kids knew that he cared about. Now there were some kids that Coach Joe Blow, as they used to call him. They're like, Joe Blow doesn't care about me. Like they don't. They thought that they would cuss him up one side and down the other because he was being hard on him, because he was trying to hold him accountable.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that a lot of the kids that played for him realized that he really had their best interests at heart, and he was the one that was trying to push them to be better and stuff like that.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
Tell you something about Joe. What was it, about a month or two ago when we had the convention down in Charlotte? I'm walking in the street like, I'm homeless. I basically look like a homeless person. I mean, I have a pair of jogging pants on and a sweatshirt and a hat. And all of a sudden, I see Coach Freeland walking down the sidewalk. And, I hadn't seen him in a few years, probably since the last clinic, but he's the type of guy you might not see in a year or two, but he's like immediately your friend.
Yeah.
And he has that way of dealing with people. You might have met him the first time or haven't seen him in 10 years, but I mean, he's just got
Yeah.
that relationship building that he makes you feel like that
Yep.
he's your best friend.
Yep.
And his son, Connor,
Yep. Connor, yeah.
was great at it. And now he's heading up, I think, the strength and conditioning for what did he tell me?
DC and Arlington.
Yeah.
Man,
So
I'm trying to get him down here because I want him to. I mean, he was my first call if I get a job. I was like, hey, I'm gonna try and find you a job in the building because I want him to be one of my coaches.
man, he's great. He was a great recruiter too. He did a great job.
Yeah.
He always recruited our school. He got some good players wherever he was coaching.
Yeah.
Now, you don't have to bring any particular names up or specifics, but what are some things you've seen, in your travelings from being at Randolph Henry to the 757 to back to the 804, where there was coaches that really didn't care? What examples can you give? Because, there might be a coach out there watching this that might have a guy on their staff
Yeah.
who is a guy that's not big into this. So what should you look for? What are some things you've seen that's a telltale sign or telltale sign that a person's not big into um, being intentional in their relationships?
To me, the biggest one, and I heard talking about this last night. It was a guy at the tech conference, but it's guys who want to get out as soon as practice. It's like as practice is over, we did the break. It's like, all right, I'm beelining my car and I'm getting out. And one of the guys at tech clinic last night, one of the tech guys was sharing a story with Stu Holt and somebody else, and they said that the coach they worked for didn't want them backing into their parking spots. He said that he said, "Y'all come to work ready to leave. Y'all back in your parking spots." And he said,
Mm.
from now on, nobody's back in their parking spots. You pull in every spot." So yeah, I think the first one of the things is look for guys who are wanting to leave as soon as practice is over. Like if you notice that, I mean, I think the other things are like there's really no if they're coached in position. There's no practice plan. There's no like they just come and wing it every day. They come and they there's no like commitment. Like there's no commitment to the kid. Like the kid, they're not interested in the kids. They're
Yeah,
not like
they're like the kids are just pieces to the
yeah, the piece of
puzzle.
the
They're
puzzle.
chess
Yeah,
pieces. They're
they're
just like
treating them like
inanimate
X's and O's
objects.
rather than Jimmys and Joes, as we all say. Like they're treating them as those pieces rather than that's Max or that's Aaron or that's Tyshawn. Like they're not. Oh, that's my linebacker. That's my D line. Like they're not showing the commitment to the actual kids rather than the. I guess they're just there to. They think they're just there to do a job and not be involved and not like we us coaches I think we do a lot. We're called to do a lot more than just coach football. Like we're
Oh yeah.
not there. Yeah, we're not there just to coach. We're there for a lot of things. And I, as a teacher, I see that we're called to do that a lot too. But that's on a much bigger scale. Like maybe in my position group, I have 10 or 12 kids, maybe 15 on a bigger team. But in a classroom, like I have 180 to 200 kids. Like and I'm just trying to. It's hard for me to be that like almost like a counselor to 180, 200. Whereas I can be a counselor to 10 or 12 kids. I can if one kid's got a problem, like one of my linebackers has got a problem, I can kind of work through with that kid. Whereas, so yeah, I mean, it's just I think that the biggest thing for noticing is like guys who want to leave early, guys who aren't gonna stick it. It's like be there for the kids. Like who's not gonna? I don't even know. I mean, it's kind of the things that we said in the do not say this or do this. Like guys who blame other things, like don't take ownership for some of the things. Like, oh well, I didn't have enough time in practice to practice fundies this week, so that's not my fault that we didn't play well. Or well, no, make the most of your fundy time. Like you gotta like, or I mean, what else? What are some other things? Trying to think of. The guys who are negative all the time, the guys who are constantly just berating the kids and just getting on them all the time,
Yes.
like, it's, like, never a positive thing, it's always negativity, like, it's always like, "Dadgummit, do it this way," or it's just like, those guys really get on my nerves a lot, and I mean,
Yeah.
I've been around there was one that comes to mind, I'm not gonna say names, but I actually stopped coaching at one of the schools I was at for a year and went to another school because of a coach. I was like, "I can't be on the same staff as this guy." He
Mm.
was he was he was not I just didn't I was like, "I don't wanna be around this guy. He's not the type of guy I wanna be around to to better these kids. Like, they're not gonna get better if he just keeps being this way with them." And, I told the coach out the head coach, I was like, "Hey, I'm sorry, I can't be around this guy." He was like, "Yeah, okay." And I went to another school and then I came back the next year, but and he was gone, but I was just like, "I thank God I was not around that guy anymore."
Yeah, no doubt, coach. So if there's anybody out there that's watching the clinic and might have more questions or need to contact you, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you, coach, or anything else you'd like to tell the clinic before we sign off?
I met a lot of guys last night at the tech clinic. I told some of the guys, I was like, "I'm just looking for a home in the Richmond area." My wife Sarah, she's a professor at VCU. I'm trying to look for a home somewhere I can teach and coach. Like right now, I'm teaching at Highland Springs, but coaching at Mechanicsville. Um, Shane's great. Shane's great. Like I'll go back to Mechanicsville this year. Um,
But you
I
want to
am
be in
looking,
the building
but I want to
because
be
I
in the
mean,
building. Yeah, and
you can't build relationships
no,
if
and
you
that
only see the kids, during the fall,
right.
4 days a
Yeah,
week. You
yeah,
got to be in that building and you got to be there for those kids. So,
yeah,
yeah, and I think Shane understands that. And, you know, Shane always wanted that when he was an assistant to be in the building. So,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, coach, if you need anything, hit me up. Do you have Twitter
I
or
do.
anything,
Let
coach?
me make sure I have the right username here. It is Coach_Rob63. That's my
Coach
Twitter handle.
underscore Rob 63, y'all on Twitter. If you have any questions for Coach or if you want him to email you the presentation. Coach, thank you, my brother.
Absolutely,
Thank you
Coach.
for
Thanks for
for
having me
coming on the
on.
clinic. And let me know if you need anything.
Absolutely. Thank you so
Thank you, man.
much.